Let's go, boys. Let's have a show here today.
Rocket, man.
Giddy up. Giddy up.
Oh, love it.
All right, I'm done with the countdown, boys. Let's fucking go. Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of High Top Sports. We have some breaking news that happened just moments ago. Didn't plan for a show, but we're always ready for a show. It's better to be ready than be planned, and we're going to be rocking and rolling. Before we do anything, we'll introduce the co-host for the evening and potential partnership in the works here, boys and girls. Tyler Spurlock. I didn't realize you had a Florida State shirt on. This is not a good way to start this relationship, Tyler. you can't come in
I'm
day
trying to
one.
turn your fans, man.
You can't come in day one just spurring shit up like that. You gotta, whatever. It is what it is. You gotta ease your way in. He's all cowboyed up. I love it.
I'll fire him up. I'll get him rolling.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to talk with Tyler. Tyler was on our draft show, actually. That was where this love blossomed, and it was a fantastic show. And we're looking to start a show in July every Tuesday talking all things college football. This is a great start to that. We had a guy on, Steve, and he started the show with me. He was a Florida State fan, so we're replacing that we've missed that Florida State vibe. He's not like most Florida State fans, but I will say I spoke to him for 3 hours on draft night. He had a Pitt ACC Dan Marino jersey. This guy loves the game, so we're in good hands.
Yeah, we're good. Like I'll give a little bit of smoke, but I'm also a realist. I totally get it. I get what. I'm not just DJ Ugalali is going to leave us to the promised land. You know what I'm saying?
I love it. We can figure it out. So look, let's talk what just happened. You're kind of like, what happened? And I was like, you'll just find out on the show, and we're gonna just go at it raw dog style. That's what we like to do here, rocking and roll. So we're gonna read over what's been written and then give our thoughts and opinions about it. Quick initial thought, I like it, but I'm gonna leave it at that. So let's dive into it. Kind of some quick little verbiage from what we're reading. So they have approved a $2.8 billion settlement. The NCAA and Southeastern Conference leadership. The SEC becomes the latest to agree to. I'm reading the right thing. With 4 of the 5 power conferences on board, only approval from the Pac-12 was needed to move forward with the proposed settlement. A decision from its presidential board was accepted later today. Blah, 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 blah. None of that means anything. The most important part is what everybody cares about is what I have on the screen. It says, under the terms of proposed settlement, the NCAA would pay $2.7 billion over 10 years to former and current college athletes who were denied by now defunct rules the ability to earn money from the endorsement and sponsorship deals dating to 2016. The NCAA and conference also would agree to establish a revenue-sharing system with schools allowed, though not required, to spend about $21 million each year on their athletes. That number could grow over time if revenue increases. So what do we learn from just that little paragraph? Is number one, the NCAA is now back in. So we like just a few weeks ago, there was talks that there could become this power conference. The SEC and the Big Ten could come together and basically branch off and break off and go be their own thing, their own entity. This is now allowing the NCAA back in control, right? This, in my opinion, this is how this reads: is they're paying a $2.7 billion debt to buy back in and to buy back the power that essentially they lost. They realized this with the lawsuit that's happening with Tennessee and Florida by them being sued, that we're screwed with what's happening.
Yeah, and the NCAA, we know the NCAA loves power. They don't like to give up any kind of power. I guess my question is like, it's $20 million per athlete or on its athletes is what they're roughly saying. So do you think that's going to bring like parity into NCAA where other guys might go here for more money, but now that they're getting paid, is that going to change, do you think?
So look, I think how I'm reading this is at $21 million each, right? There's a salary cap. That's how I'm reading it, because it's $21 million for each school, and then how they divvy up that between athletics. I mean, I would assume there's, 12, 13, 15 million gets allocated to football, right? That's how it's going to look. And then the rest of it just gets spread out, which in a sense, we're going backwards, right? Because what's going to happen now is the old bag money that was once a thing, everything behind closed doors, now resurfaces because you only have so much that you can spend. However, and I've said this before, I've been calling for a cap system. How I believe the cap system is going to fix this is because if you only have $15 million, what's going to change? You see it now on three. They're already ahead of the game. They've got NIL valuations, which is just what you see in the NFL. They have values per player. If you've got
Right.
6 5-star guys valued at X amount, and you know how much Florida's spending each year, then there's something going underneath the table, right? You don't have 6 guys or 3 guys taking a cut they're not Tom Brady in it to go win a ring. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, of course. And I guess that's the way I'm reading it, like you said, it's a cap. It's kind of a cap like the NFL has. But do you think that I think this helps other schools personally?
Sure.
Um,
I
I
I agree.
I think I think it's going to bring parity back into college football is what we're looking for. There's not just going to be the Alabama's like getting all the studs and the Georgia's getting all the studs. Now guys don't care about going somewhere else to where they would have got paid more from the nil, like, and now they can go play for a school they actually want to play for and still get paid the same amount of money. I get roughly.
So the value, right? So like, look, the whole Jaden Rashada thing, 13.5 million. You're not going to see these crazy deals anymore. There's going to be a value for each position group, and like you just said, they will get their respective values. And you know what? You know what was a big play to this? Where Gator fans are going to be excited. I think we can all agree that Billy has done a great job recruiting. Recruiting now becomes relevant again, right?
Yeah.
It's because the money is no longer going to be an asset, and now this raises the question: Does this? It won't discontinue NILs, but it's going to change it and probably go back to what it was originally intended for, helping them now sign deals, right? It's not going to be paying their contract, but more so just help being the facilitator. It's going to be their agent nonetheless in facilitating deals, which it does now, but right now we know what it is. It's their payroll. It's the they're that's how they're paying these players. It's the loophole. Now you've eliminated that loophole. Now the collectives can go and do what they're supposed to do. Now we have a great relationship with our Florida collective, which allows for interviews. Could that change? I'm sure. And a lot of things are going to be up for grabs. It's very interesting. Again, that's why I said first rip, first gut feeling. I think it's great for college football. Some people are going to be upset about it. Look, the whole amateur status has been gone. That's been eliminated. All we've needed now is the Wild Wild West to be trimmed up. And guess what? We've trimmed it.
And this is the way I wanted it to be to begin with. I thought that, like instead of the nil, like I wanted everyone to get paid, but within their means of never having to work being a college student. They can concentrate on football, which we know NCAA, we know college football brings in all the money. Like there's no getting around that. So back in the day, they obviously weren't getting any money. And then we went overboard and got them all the nil money. And then it became the Wild Wild West where you go anywhere you were getting paid. To now we have kind of a set money on however much we're going to spend, even though like I still think the better players should still get more money.
Sure.
But I don't think they're leaving. Like you're not going to get, for instance, Lagaway is not going to leave Florida now to go somewhere else just because he's going to get paid a ton more money.
Sure. You won't see the Miami Florida Rashada situation. It's not going to happen because whatever Rashada
Right.
is worth, that's what school is going to pay. Now, will a school be willing to pay Rashada maybe $1 million or $2 million more because they may have more budget available because maybe they took more 3 stars, right? So you might see it, but it's not going to be drastic. It's not going to be enough to really turn some heads. It will make some impact. Like it's going to be like what you see now in the NFL, like actual contract negotiation, or like, hey, let's see how this thing works. Somebody commented, there's a couple super chats. 1 second, Tyler. One said,
Yeah.
boo this man, Harrison Sanchez for $2. And then,
I'll take all the smoke, baby. I'll bring all the smoke.
look, Tyler's a real dope, boys. Y'all gonna end up loving this guy. And then Tony 2X says, nice hat. Shirt has some poo on it though. Look, they're ruthless, my man. They don't hold any punches, which is why I love him. Harrison, guys, you got to give him some break. The guy's been here for 12 minutes, not even. Austin Stoltz said they said about 21 million. I don't know if they mean it as in a cap. Maybe that's what they're given from NCAA, and the school can pay more off endorsements. So how I'm reading it says with schools allowed, though not required, to spend about 21 million each year. That about is because thinking about the Oakland A's, if you don't want to spend $21 million in total budget,
Right.
you don't have to, right? So that some
Right.
schools may go cheap out on it. And then the revenue over time it will increase depending. I'm imagining, that's just what they're making in and how much they want to divvy up to that pay to play aspect. So look, I think like you said, it brings um, it brings what we've been wanting in college football for there to be an even playing field. And again, get back to the basics of just X's and O's of who's the better coach, who can recruit, keep the money part out of it. And look, it's hilarious. I mean, these coaches and staffs, the constant evolution. I mean, like they're constantly having learn a new game. It feels like every other week.
Yeah, it's and that's why honestly that's why Saban got out of it. I mean, the game's passed Saban by now because Saban had no idea what was going on at any point.
Sure.
And honestly, Dabo needs to get on board with whatever's happening because he's drastically going down the hill. He just refuses to get in the portal. He don't want to do any part of it, and you can just see Clemson is starting to struggle. But I think that this moving forward should help all the schools. Maybe not on the level of the bigger times, like big time schools, but now I think that there's more of an even playing field with the bottom Pac-12 or something of that nature, or the bottom of the SEC might get more guys now than they would.
Yeah, and I think it brings some clarity to this situation too, because again, going back to if you're allowed to spend 21 million and a school isn't recruiting well or they're struggling, well, you can go and look at like, hey, well, you had this much left over in budget. What are you doing? And now boosters and fans can now start to hold these teams and their front office is more accountable of like we're not spending the money where it needs to be. And it's going to be fun and interesting to watch. Kermani McLean coming to Florida as a walk on, we might see more of that. Where hey, we don't have the budget for you, but we think you're great. You're on that 3-star cusp. We want you to play here, but we can't pay you for the budget. So here's how we can make this thing work. I think we might see more of that as well, which I'm fine with. I think that's again, in a way, I think this is going to move. Look, whoever was in these last 2 years for college football made out like a bandit, and that's like anything in life. Usually, the
Yeah,
first
of
one's
course.
there, they get the best bang for their buck, and then it levels itself out, and it's just like the real estate market. I was here first, made a killing off of it. It wasn't realistic when it happened. We knew that, but I got here in time. Now that things are starting to level out, like I said, off the initial rip, what was exciting when I read the article, I was like, wow, this makes clear sense. Sometimes you dive into these things and it's a bunch of jargon, and you're like, I don't know. This means absolutely nothing. And I think this still has to get completely settled. So that's what we're still waiting on
Yeah.
as well.
Well, this is going to take time for them to get this correct because, like you said, once you're the first people, you either get screwed or you make out like a bandit. And the
Hmm.
guys made out like a bandit. They did not. They weren't the guys that got screwed. So I'm also interested in 2.7 million. How is that going? Like, how is that going out? Like, I know it's going to all previous players, and it's over a 10-year span. If I've read that correctly, right?
Yeah, they're going to be paying over
So is
10
that all the
years.
Power Five schools? All the Power Five schools and all that's getting divvied out that way?
Yeah,
I'm just very curious.
that part doesn't. I'd imagine because those are the 5 that voted on it, and then it's going back to 2016. So every player that was impacted going back to 2016,
Okay.
which
Oh
is
yeah, I do see
wild.
the 2016 are eligible right here. 100%. Now I think we got to get this conference thing right moving forward because as much as the SEC bothers me and it pisses me off, but they are now the power, and it sucks because I'm just going to pick on Florida right now. Florida, me and my buddy had this conversation and we talked. Florida could legitimately be 6-0 and lose out. I mean,
We
that is
we,
like a
we talked about it
legitimate.
last night. We talked about it
Oh,
last
did
night.
you? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
I
no,
had
you're
a little
good. No,
issue.
we talked about going 7-0 and like look, those last 5 games. Well, except the last game is an easy win, but yeah, the last 4 games, will yeah, 100% could lose out. Could be tough.
And I don't like it now because I think the SEC is going to get more screwed than they've ever have. Like I don't think they were getting screwed in the past. I thought they were very favored, but now I think they're going to get screwed because of how many good schools are in there, and you're not going to put all of them in. That's just not realistic. You're going
Sure.
to take the teams that lose to one another. So once again, I think that needs to be taken care of too. Like you either have 64
Mm.
monsters more big. You know what I mean? Like let's
You're so
figure all this
you're a
out.
fan of you're saying the five conferences need to shrink up a little bit. And like, look, I think it's a solid point of, look, the ACC is I call it a crappy conference. I mean, it doesn't really
Yeah,
hold
it's
much weight to it. And look, you could legitimately see 3 to 4 teams from the SEC go into the 12-team playoff. You're gonna have the winner of the ACC and maybe the second place, depending on how it folds out, get in for the ACC. And the Big 12, honestly, will just have the winner, right? And then the Big Ten will probably
yeah.
take up 3 to 4 spots. That's how it's gonna shake up.
Like, like I said, I'm a realist. The ACC is no longer. It used to be legit conference, and there were some good teams, but now it isn't legit. Like all the best schools have gone to the SEC. They all have. They all will, and we have to figure out a way to make it to where it's more even of a playing field. If there's five conferences, if there's not going to be five conferences, then let's get it down to where we can take two or three from each conference, and they're playing on the same level of playing field. I mean, it's unfair. Florida's schedule to be, and you're going to get this from a Florida State fan, is unfair. Is an unfair schedule.
I think that was part of also why Saban left. He's like looking at it. He's like, look, the SEC, like before there was an advantage to our schedule because there's 4 spots we're going to get voted in. Now you're you're going to get in. For almost every conference is going to get in now, right? And it's like
Right.
the goal is to always win your conference championship. And now, if you were Saban before, where you could just go run that path in Alabama, it's like, look, this now became a gauntlet of a schedule. Now, I will say, look, Florida. There's been a lot of conversations. They go 9-3. They're in the playoffs. They're
I do agree. I do think if they go 9-3, I was going to skate to the point of where if they were 8-4, and you put a 9-3 school from the Big 12 in, like now we have an argument because they obviously didn't play that level of competition.
for
And
sure.
I thought it was more even back in the day, and now it's not. So I think now that we're getting this correct, I think now we got to get the conference right because it's not right now. It's just not.
Agreed. So for those of you just joining us, a couple things we got to address. Number one, we've got a big breaking news with a settlement going on with us basically transitioning to pay to play. Number two, a lot of question marks and a lot of hate thrown at my man Tyler here because of his FSU gear. Look, let's settle down here, boys. Okay, let's be adults for 5 minutes. He's an
You
FSU
guys
fan.
need one of me. You need one of me.
Look, the guy's very knowledgeable. We've had great conversation. He's an absolute blast to talk to. It's great to have somebody who's not always going to be on the same side as us to push back a little bit. It's healthy for development, boys. Okay, so let's pipe down just a touch in the comment sections. But look, if you guys just join us, what's happening here is that they have agreed. The NCAA and Power Five conferences have agreed to settle with a buyout to allow for pay to play, which we're looking like here. There's going to be a salary cap of $21 million, again, assessed to each school, which again, what I think, like, to me, and this probably won't work out because it's too simple, right? Like I was mentioning before, all this now puts barriers, puts bumpers back onto this, what we've had of going wherever you want. But again, I've been on three has done a great job in my opinion of always being 3 steps ahead. It seems like, and it's like, where are they headed? And it's like they kind of felt this was going this way. Those NI evaluations that have not had a value just yet, they've kind of just been a number, and it's kind of cool to see now carry a ton of weight. And what is interesting, like Olivia Dunn, right, who was a gymnast, was valued at 3.4. Now, a lot of that goes into what she's worth, and more so like, hey, if she were to go get a record or a deal, but I promise you it's going to transition into what her value is worth, just like when in the NFL, when D-Hop hits the market and Jared Goff just signs a $50 million contract, that now sets the tone for other quarterbacks, right? And each year, that cap continues to rise and that value for that position continues to rise. We're going to see that. And how do you avoid, back in the day, that, paper bag maneuver is each player is going to have a value. And if you start counting up, okay, 30 million, 2 million, 6 million, and realize like they've got a bunch of guys that it adds up over the salary cap and they're claiming they're making this, somebody's coming in with the backwards deal. It's going to be messy, I think, at first, but I think ultimately this is the step that's needed. I don't know how I feel about the NCAA getting back in. I felt like I liked that, us getting away from the babysitter of the NCAA, right? Because I feel like it's always been that one thing that college fans agreed on is we're not a fan of the NCAA and how they function.
Yeah, I do agree. I'm not a fan of the NCAA, but I also do think that you do need someone who's controlling this. They may
Sure.
not control it the way you want them to,
True.
but it's like having the NFL commissioner.
True.
You got to have someone in power to control, or like you said, you're getting the Wild Wild West. Now,
Agreed.
the NCAA has never obviously been on the side of the players, like as we know. But at the end of the day, like I still think we need someone regulating it, like I almost a regulate, like you understand what I'm saying. Um, and I don't know, it's a work in progress, but it's headed in the right direction.
And look, shout out to the schools and the conferences. I mean, think about all their student athletes that they just hooked up $2.7 billion. I mean, the
Yeah,
NCAA, that's a hell of a. Think about that, right? Think about like how you lived at your parents' house, right? And they controlled everything forever, and they took care of you, paid for everything, and you figured out like I don't need you, I can go. And now they're paying you basically to come back to live with them. Like that's what's happening here. They're paying you a surplus, more money that you could ever imagine to come back. You're like, yeah, I'll come back.
right.
Oh, come on.
It, and think about it. I mean, 2.7 billion. That just shows how much money they were actually making. I mean, let's call that what it is. Like, let's.
Because that's look, the number was higher, right? Like that's the thing
Yeah,
is like
right. 100%.
this is what they
That's my
settled
point.
on.
Like 100%, it was higher. And they just came out 2.7 billion like it was nothing. Yeah, that's a good number. We like that number. Like
Yeah,
they could have went for 3.7. Sounds like.
you got to be kicking yourself. The conferences if they're like they agree on 2.7, it's like we didn't go high enough. They're they're
right,
they're
right.
holding out a lot more, right? Like 2.7. It's crazy too. Like think about like we say 2.7 billion, like it's like 27 million. You know what I mean? Like 2.7 billion. That's a lot.
That's
Like,
a lot.
that's a
That's
ton of.
a lot of zeros.
I mean, it's a lot of athletes. It's a lot of
Yeah, that's
athletes.
true. Very true. And it's going to give divvied up. However, I don't know, but that is a lot of athletes and a lot of money. But I think it's a good deal. I think it's more. It's I don't want to say fair, but it's got everybody headed where we all want to see everyone go. It's got all of that, and that's great. And I'm just happy to see college football getting back to that. Instead of we were all starting to not like college football. I don't want to say not liking it, but we didn't like the path it was headed down. I heard so many people say this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. Now when they see this, like okay, now we're reeling them back in.
Yeah, you're again, you're putting the barriers back up, the bumpers back on to because it felt like look, it was headed to a direction where the rich were getting richer, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you're starting to see teams just stack players on top of players, and it's like the recruiting lost its lust for sure. And again, I think this brings back all the things we love about college football. It really does. The recruiting, in my opinion, is going to be important again. The signing days are going to be valuable. If honestly, it might even be more exciting because I feel like now the portal will slow down a little bit too, because guys aren't going to just
yeah,
be going left and right because they are getting paid now. They're going to be guaranteed an amount depending on what stars they have coming in. I feel like it might be a little. There could be some more contract negotiation going on, and they're not going to just dip out to go to a school that's just throwing money around because they're going to see like, hey, only 6 schools now have so much to divvy up to give out this coming season, and they've got a recruiting class coming in. So, like I said, it really gets us back to where we were, but the kids ultimately are still being taken care of, and that's where the whole thing started. I was like, I think we all agree, like, hey, we're cool with the kids getting paid. Let's just make sure it's done properly, um, to keep it maintained. Look, you need, like you said, you need rules, you need boundaries for it to function. Like we all want free market, we all want these things, and I agree with you. We all want to be entrepreneurs. We all want to go do these things. There has to be ebbs and flow. There has to be balance for an ecosystem to work, and that's to me, this is what we're headed.
well, this is where I wanted to begin with instead of nil because it's the NFL. Let's
Sorry.
talk about this like it's the no, you're good. So let's talk about this like it's the NFL. And when you're in the NFL, just like you said, if you were like a 3-star recruit, you're coming in and you may not get the money, but you can earn that money. To where, as in, if you are a 5-star recruit, you're going to get the money right away. It's kind of like being a first round draft pick, getting paid, and being an undrafted guy coming in, trying to earn that money, trying to earn their spot, trying to earn their position. So what I always wanted was something like this. And then, if kids are out there buying your jersey, like you should get money for that.
100%. And now we get back to that, which is where NIL was supposed to be in the first place. And that excites me again. Now like you just said, you're going to come in on a rookie contract. That's how this is going to work. I don't care how many stars you are. There's a limit for freshmen coming in as a 4 or 5 star. That's number one. Now, number two, there'll be possibly incentives, but the biggest thing is the better you play, that NIL we've got over there, they're going to get you bigger contracts. You're going to sell more jerseys, and now it's like a sales job in the sense of like the more you perform, the more income you're going to be able to make, which is kind of the what the play is now. But the money they're getting is so big, they don't care about that. But now again, you're getting back to that order. Packer Nation says college football is headed to the NFL route. I don't know what FSU's doing on their side of things. I don't not too familiar with internally with the NIL. I know they have this beer guard or something like that. But Billy recently hired Texas A&M's old AD as a front office. He mentioned like an NIL, but like an NFL staff. And I said, look, that's a big time move because of how this was all headed. And now it makes total sense. This is to manage this. And they had to have had a feeling all of these things were coming. These things, they come out to us. This isn't new to these coaches. They have a feel that it's going that way. And now, again, that hire that he made, in my opinion, makes even more sense.
Yeah, and I agree. I couldn't agree with more. I think it is heading to an NFL route, and it should head to an NFL route. These guys, most of these, that's where not most of these guys, but that's where these guys want to get to. So like we got to let's go ahead and treat them like they're already there, so they know what they're getting into. I think what we're doing, I think what they're doing is good, and it's headed there.
No, absolutely. And look, I mean, when I saw it broke, I was pumped to see that it happened. And like I said, when I read it, I was like, wow, that's something we've been kind of preaching for. We've been wanting it, and I love it. Let me see here. KDB said this is a lot of money that was going somewhere else before, so it will be interesting how that affects these universities. Um, I guess just overall the money. This is a lot of money that was going somewhere else. So yeah, look, I mean, I'm not quite sure what the question is, but I'm assuming just the money in general, where how we are paying the players. I'd imagine that's going to be thinned up. So maybe that's what she's referring to. All the money that's being spent now is probably going to
Right.
be more allocated. So it will be interesting to see how that money is reallocated towards the universities.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how much, I mean, football is the main source of, that's where they make a lot of their money, the schools. I
Sure.
mean, that's just their life. So, like, I'm assuming that most of that money is going to head towards football. But I think it's going to be good for the other, honestly, just all the athletes at that school, regardless of what they're playing. I mean, I think it's good for everyone. Like, those people, some of those, like, let's just say basketball, and the guys that aren't even playing, like, still could earn a little bit of money to whereas they wouldn't have any money.
Yeah, I think, like
So,
right now, I mean, you see some of those top guys, and they're definitely getting paid. And the trickle effect is probably where the issue is. Again, that the bottom of the bottom feeders and those smaller sports aren't getting much. Where now there's going to be at least a commonality, like you said, across. This is how it appears: a commonality between all sports that everybody will be taken care of fairly. And again, it kind of just goes back, in my opinion, filling in that scholarship role. Right? It's just going to be what the scholarship intended, what college was supposed to be, is everyone gets a free school and then the opportunity to excel their career. But now this time they're going to have that plus a little extra cheddar, which they're getting that now, but much more. Let's do this real quick. Let me give a shout out to our sponsors here. We got to pay the bills and keep the lights on, Tyler, while we're rocking and rolling here, boys. Where's my? There you go, boys. We found it. We found it. Look, let's talk about our sponsors here at the Perfect Jean. This is an urgent public service announcement. Think you mastered the look in sweatpants and joggers. You're one step away from pajamas in public. Your significant other said you look like a slob. It's time to show your sexy ass in jeans. If you take anything from our show today, is that the Perfect Jean isn't just another pair of stiff, uncomfortable, nut-crushing pants. They've cracked the code to solving all your denim difficulties. And the best part is they make 6 fits from skinny to thick, waist size from 26 to 50, and lengths from 26 to 38. So whether you're thick daddy, short king, or anything in between, they perfectly fit your body and accentuate your assets. Pun intended. Trust us when we say they are truly effing perfect jeans. Once you try them, you'll never go back. For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off their first order plus free shipping at theperfectgene.nyc or Google The Perfect Gene and use the code HIGHTOP15 for 15% off. Look, we've been talking about them. You guys know I love them. They fit fantastic, and we're happy to have them as our sponsors. And glad that some of you guys have already bought yourselves a pair and are looking extra sexy. So I appreciate you. And it's finally time to stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectgene.nyc. Our listeners get 15% off your first order, plus free shipping, free returns, free exchange when you use the code HIGHTOP15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectgene.nyc with promo code HIGHTOP15. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. F your khakis and get the perfect gene. So, good stuff there. Appreciate you guys. Let me rattle that off and get yourself some sexy pair of jeans. And we'll bring our man Tyler back on and get rocking and rolling. Eddie, what's going?
Jeans.
They're nice, man. They're nice. We love them. They're no joke. I'm not even just the bullshit. I genuinely like them.
I believe you 100%.
Yeah, it's good stuff. LFG, let's see what he says here. Other sports will suffer long term now that it's being treated as a professional sport. If it doesn't bring in revenue, the sport will be on the chopping block. That is interesting. I
don't know if it'll be on the chopping block, but I think that they just won't get paid. You know what I mean? They just won't add. They'll just get paid minimum, I guess. Like just enough to get by. I don't think they'll chop any sports out of a Power 5.
Yeah, I agree. But let's just say they give $1 million to soccer, right? What will happen is if that school isn't performing well or you're generating revenue, that they just won't get any. Because what's going to happen now is a school is now, in my opinion, going to get a surplus of revenue back, which is how it was originally, right? So that's where all the money should be going into the campuses and building up your facilities. So those things, if your team or your sport isn't performing, then you probably just won't have as much of a surplus to upgrade your facilities because you're not returning the revenue. That budget, I think, is going to be allocated to soccer, like you just said, regardless. But again, it goes back. We're kind of going backwards in a sense, in the good way of that. It gets back to the college atmosphere of who has the best facilities, who can recruit the best, who's developing the best nutritionists, and those things is where the school is going to invest in based on how things are performing, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, this is all new to everyone, so we all are guessing at this moment.
Yeah,
that's my guess, and we'll see.
Taylor Renee, is this $20 million for all sports or just football? The way that it's being read right now, what we were just saying, I'll pull up the article here, is that it looks like it's for all sports. So for all their athletes is what it says. So I'm assuming it's $21 million that's to give to be divvied up amongst all the sports. Again, I'm giving a rough estimate of 12 to 15 for football. That's where the bread and butter is, and then the remaining $8 or so million or $6 million be divvied up to the other sports.
Yeah, I mean you're going to give the most money to the thing that creates most revenue, and everyone loves college football, so that's where most of that money is definitely going to go.
Brian Fesher, this is what we were just kind of talking about. This also is going to kill the transfer portal because players will sign contracts out of high school. Like I said, I think it's going to. And look, you were kind of talking about Dabo. Maybe he saw this and was like, I'm not even going to try to adjust because guys like Lincoln Riley, Norvell, and Lane Kiffin, they've made their living off of the transfer portal, and this could kill it. Now, if you go full blown portal and you kind of function that way, you're going to allow for that budget to remain open, but it will be interesting to see. Now there's going to be more of a contract, I believe, probably put into place. Maybe. I'd imagine you can always break in and go into the portal. But again, it goes to what I mentioned earlier. You're going to see what schools have money to spend and how much of that is they have to spend. So you're looking at FSU, and I'm a running back. They've got $1.5 million to give to a running back, and I'm making $1 million now. I'm not playing, but I'm guaranteed this. Do I really want to go take a chance that they're going to pick me up? That's what's going to be interesting to see.
Well, I think as much as I do like this, I think it hurts Florida State moving forward because obviously Norvell's been the transfer king. Now he's going to have to do. I mean, we've recruited well too, but a lot of our studs have come through transfer. There's no getting around it. So as much as I like it, I'm kind of nervous.
Look, I mean, we always want change, we want new things, but there's always going to be a question mark and concern of what could be. Harrison Whitfield says, I feel like players should get a minimum wage for hours spent practicing in the weight room and watching film, and then let them get paid for autographs, jersey sales, and video games, etc. Look, and I think that was always what it was intended to be, right? That's the whole point of the NIL is that the video games, autographs, jersey sales, what they put outside the field is where and how popular their brand is. So these kids that went out and made YouTube channels and really worked on their social media game, they're gonna make from this as well. I don't know if they'll get paid by hour. It'll be just like a salary base, in my opinion. But same thing, right? They're getting paid for the work on the field, and there's a separate entity for working off the field, and that's where I think the NIL collective unity or entities will still be a factor and have an input in this.
Yeah, I think it's the same concept. I get what he's saying. I think what they have in place is the same concept. It's just not minimum wage. You know, it's not minimum wage, but I think it is the
Yeah,
concept of what they were.
absolutely. A couple of things. So this man, that guy's fleece is ugly. Get him some of those new jeans at least. Yeah, we can definitely do that. It, and look, Brian, you're nailed on the head, man. I was saying this earlier. If you can't recruit the old way, you are done. And this is where I'm excited for Billy. I mean, he's done a great job of recruiting. He's was brought in for his recruiting tactics, and now this, in my opinion, he goes like we're going backwards in time in a good way because now the good old fashioned recruiting is going to play a factor once again. Do you love the school that you're playing at? Do you love being here? Because the money is still important, but it's not going to carry as much weight as it is now. Because, like I said, 5 star, how I look at it, a 5 star, the number one quarterback is going to have a value. And it's let's just say it's a million for 1.5 for the year. Let's just hypothetical here. Every school is going to give them that. And that just means they're going to have to adjust where they go elsewhere. But it also can mean like I'm not willing to spend that one because I want to go think about how we play fantasy football on DraftKings when you're trying to draft a team with your budget, right? You got 50 G's. You don't do you go get 6 studs and then you find trying a couple barrel riders down here or 3 stars, or you go in the middle, right? It's going to be interesting. This is how I'm imagining it that it could be or will be. It may not be that way at all, but that's how this feels, and I like that.
I do. I like it too. I'm a big fan of it, and I want the recruiting back into play. And I'm tired of seeing thousands and thousands of athletes go to the portal and going here and going there, and recruiting didn't mean anything because they can leave whenever the hell they want it. Drive
Yeah.
me nuts.
No, I agree. It's definitely lost again, the recruiting, the signing day. We were always big about it on our show. We have followed it during this time. We're still following it. Don't get it twisted because it's still fun and I enjoy it. But it's lost its lust. It's lost its excitement because we saw this year. One, we saw how they ended for Florida this year. It didn't end very exciting because guys came in last minute and just threw money at you. So all the hard work of actually recruiting didn't do anything for Billy until the spring cycle where you saw some got 3 players that were heavily recruited didn't work out at that current school and all of them flipped after being there for a month or two. So either way, you know, hate it, you love it, it kind of works itself out, but it was frustrating to follow for sure.
Yeah, it was starting to wear me out, and it was helping. It was benefiting Florida State, and it wore me out.
Yeah, yeah. LFGM says there may not even be a contract. If there's a set amount per position with NIL supplement, then scholarships could still be a determining factor of who you play for. Yeah, and look, I think that's kind of what we're getting at is that I think each position is going to have its own set budget. NIL may still have a factor on how good they are and how effective they are on signing deals for players, right? That might be a part of recruiting now. Of how great is their NIL, is their collective? How involved are they of getting you scholarships? How many people do you have signed up on? How many players do you have on your agency? And how many deals did you sign this past year? That's where I believe the NIL is going to head to, which is what it should have been in the first place instead of just a bank. And look, I think Florida has done a great job of getting into that direction of getting these kids signed, having them sign contracts, and getting more of like, hey, like, it's not going to just be we're paying you. You're going to do some things in return for this contract as well. We'll pay you, but you're gonna make this thing work as well.
I also think this is interesting because you might see, like, let's just say Lagaway, because I know all you guys love the Lagaway, and
It's
he
Lagway.
becomes.
You're adding vowels in there. You just relax.
I call it Lagaway because I don't want nothing to do with him. But anyways,
You want to
I'm
log
just
away?
going to
Okay.
put this point of it here. DJ, let's just call him DJ.
That's his name.
He becomes a superstar,
Sure.
and they're recruiting a 5 star, like another 5 star quarterback. To whereas he would rather go to a different school, play, and maybe earn more nil money, but he's still getting paid on top of that. So he
Sure.
could also, instead of going to Florida and setting, now he can be like, well, you know what? I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to get paid no matter what, and I can earn nil money if I become a superstar. So I like that factor of it too.
No, absolutely. Dom says $2 is why are you wearing my mom's sweater? She left it here last night, Dom. So I figured I'd throw it on. Keep her warm. Keep it warm for her. So, um, you like how you're thinking one player worth, what does he say? You like how you thinking one player worth 250K or five worth KW. I need you to reword that. Um, let's see here.
I
Go
think
ahead.
what I was reading was is he was saying, do you think one is worth 250K, or would you rather have five guys worth like 50K?
Okay, I guess back to what I was saying about that DraftKings thing, right? Like, would you and that? Okay, so how you say management is going to be key. Managing a fantasy football team again, going back to your draft, your recruiting ability. You're 100% right. Do you go Miami it right? Get 23 3 stars worth their value, but you get a lot more quality. Again, you only have 85 scholarships, so it's not going to be as much. But maybe you get a little more than just one big guy, right? Like that's going to be a definitely an interesting point. And look, I think evaluation of these players and going back to really evaluating these recruits is going to be another big factor. And some of these coaches who, in my opinion, have kind of rode off the coattails of other coaches. Hey, let's see what these guys are going after. They can just throw a check at it now. Well, now you're going to be careful how you spend that money because you only have so much to work with.
Yeah, and honestly, like a lot of these, we don't get into the minds of these kids. Like you don't know, you know what I mean? Like he's got all the talent in the world, but he's not there mentally. And you could have guys who don't have as much talent, but have the confidence, have the skill, and we could coach them. So like I'm leaning towards more. I would rather have like more 4-star and 3-star guys that I can coach and teach more than I'd rather have one 5-star guy leading my team. That's
Leading the charge.
personally my.
Yeah, no, you're good, KW. I had a hard time reading it, but thankfully Tyler was able to get it. And LFGM, last little thing here, coaching is still going to be a determining factor. The big money is still the NFL. A 5-star isn't going to SMU just because the money is the same. Brands still matter. And I agree. I think the brands will have a bigger impact where like the Memphis is right now. Memphis is making a run because FedEx threw a bunch of money at them. And it's like, like what is Memphis? I agree. The big brands will still have their power, but it allows for some of these brands like SMU and the guys that want to try to get back up to that an opportunity to do that. And maybe they might be stuck overpaying some players, but they might be able to steal a 4-star or a high 3-star that one school thinks they're worth this, but they have extra money to go around because they didn't land a big 5-star. So they'll overpay for a 3 or 4 that they never would have landed, which then could help build the brand for SMU, which then could lead to a few 5-stars. So either way, I think this could lead to, and again, it goes back to his first comment. Coaching is going to be a determining factor. Who can coach a great team to success?
And that's what I want. I want coaching to matter more, and that's I think it's awesome because if you go back to when Boise State, we're going way back to when Boise State beat Oklahoma in that Fiesta Bowl. Like you're good, you might see more teams like that again pop up out of nowhere and make the playoff or something like that. And it's cool to have an underdog. So I hope that's what it brings back.
Agree. Because with the 12-team playoff, I think that was the whole reason for it to allow to see more of that, to see an underdog story, kind of like the March Madness type of Cinderella run. And this will bring that back. And look, I don't think it was too much madness. I think these teams kind of got so lopsided. So there'll be a few teams that make a couple of runs, like the Oregons and these Texas teams. They've crushed the portal and recruiting and have really spent their budget well. So they're, in my opinion, are lined up for success for a couple years now because of that. Coaching's still going to matter, but we will see. But look, Tyler, I appreciate being hopping on. This was a great conversation. This was one hell of a convo to get started with. Got 175 strong in here. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe. Take it easy on man Tyler. Guy was dialed in. I appreciate him hopping on. Called him out of the blue there. And he's, yeah, I got you. Let's rock. Got some technical difficulties, but we figured it out
I did
nonetheless.
have some technical difficulties.
Golly, come on, man. That's true. He FSU grad. I could see why he was having computer trouble. So that's probably it makes sense. That makes sense.
I definitely did get my degree in computer science. That's for damn sure.
I love it. I appreciate you boys hopping in here on this beautiful Thursday night. Be sure to, of course, smash the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you boys in the next one. Peace and love, baby.